Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. In some episodes, I'll have guests available to give you even more tips, but in others, the floor is yours. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, and today we're talking about labels in life. We all get given them. Sometimes we live by them. They affect every facet of our life. So today, that's what we're going to discuss in depth. And I'm joined by my dear friend, Vanessa Antonakopoulos. And she's actually very skilled at many things, but she's carer for one of my sons. And we were having a discussion probably about 10 minutes ago about how labels in your life are applied to you. Sometimes they can make or break you. And so we're just going to have a frank discussion about that today. And I'm sure that every one of you will get something out of this, whether it's some education, whether it's a light bulb moment, whether it's some cleansing that you need for yourself. Whatever it is, I'm sure you'll get something out of today's talk. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, Magic.
Pleasure. Now, we were just having this discussion about labels. So for the listeners, let's recap the conversation we were having.
Yes, not a problem. So I was reflecting on through my life and my journey, all the different, I'd say, experiences that I've gone through, which has grown me a lot now in my life. However, at the time, it was very confronting, and I felt like there was labels put on me from my experiences that I allowed to hold me back moving forward in creating my life the way that I see it now. And there's good and bad there. There's always good and bad on both sides of when you have a label attached to you from experiences in your life. The time frame of how long you allow that label to hold you back, you feel very stuck and isolated from society, I would say.
Totally. So, listeners, many of us, obviously we talk about health here, and I'm just going to say this now. Many of us live by labels. You're told that, you're in menopause, or you're told that you have a disability, or you're told that you have autoimmune. They're all just labels. They don't change the person that you are. They're basically just a way for the medical fraternity to put you in a box. And Vanessa, I know that you've had your own health label. Let's discuss that one.
Yes, definitely. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer, hormonal breast cancer at 32 years of age. That is where I learned a lot that labels, I allowed it to just really hold me back. And in that whole cycle of the medical experience, that I had to do things a certain way. I couldn't look outside the box in a well-being, holistic way that I would have rather gone at the time.
Listeners, back in episode 10, we spoke to another friend of mine, Sophie Woodcock, and that episode was called It's Only Cancer. And that's because we're talking about this label. Not only do you have the medical label attached to you, but you have the stigma of it as well. Vanessa, what did you find with your cancer diagnosis?
I found that it was the whole focus. There was so much fear attached to it by my family, by the medical people all involved, that I didn't have time on my side didn't know if I was going to keep living my life. They were not concerned about me being able to have children later on in life because I might not survive. So let's just throw all this medical stuff at her and not allow her to have time to look at a second option, a third option.
Thanks for that. Now let's discuss labels in childhood. So, as kids, we're labeled throughout our childhood. We're the fussy baby or the finicky eater or the lazy child or the naughty child. Vanessa, what was your experience with labels when you were younger?
When I was younger, I'd say my label was that I was mischievous and naughty.
And how did that affect the direction of your life?
That I wouldn't listen to direction.
So oftentimes when we're young listeners, say we're told we're the fussy eater, you hear that enough times, you actually become the label. So, you go through teenage years, you get into young adulthood, and you think, well, I've never tried these foods. I've never tried these vegetables. I've never done this. Why? Oh, because I'm a fussy eater. But there's actually no truthful basis to that. It's just because you may have refused one thing when you were 4 years old or 5 years old, and you were given that label, and then you kept getting given that label. And when you hear this stuff often enough, it becomes a bit like Stockholm syndrome. You become the label. You become categorized and, for want of a better word, diagnosed as the fussy eater. So, Vanessa, what were some other labels that you had to deal with when you were growing up?
I'd say very sensitive, that I took a lot of things personally. And I would also say struggled with learning. And I remember responses from my mum of, oh, that's okay, I didn't finish school anyway. Maths was very challenging for me. However, I didn't feel that served me or allowed me to grow. I felt like it allowed me to stay stuck. And I know it was my choice at the time to feel that way, but I felt like that was getting played in my head constantly. I'm uneducated. I don't understand maths. I'm not smart enough. And it just grew from there, from a seed into this massive big plant and tree that, oh, I won't be able to run my own business. I won't be able to lead people or create things or be artistic because, oh, that was my sister that was artistic, not me.
Thanks for being so honest with us. Now, listeners, the last few episodes, I've dropped some hints about what's going on in the world. And many people around the world now are being labelled as anti-vaxxers or troublemakers or selfish. But many people are being coerced into doing something that maybe they don't want to do so that they can keep a job, roof over their heads. No matter what's going on, that's a form of labeling. So, Vanessa, what's your experience with being labelled in this current pandemic?
It's been a really challenging experience for me about labeling in that area. I feel like I learned so much about the medical industry when I was given my diagnosis. And I really learnt a lot about my body and trusting my body and trusting in my intuition. And that the more natural and healthy and holistic journey that I've taken with seeing an iridologist and working with magic and working on my mindset and working with other people to cleanse experiences and trauma, that has actually allowed me to grow a really strong tree, so to speak. That's the best way. I'm quite a visual person. So when this came at me, I was always like, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting anything poisonous in my body that is going to put my journey off track, especially when I went through something such as breast cancer that doesn't define me, that's allowed me to grow so much, and my immune system is so strong, why would I take a risk of not being able to live or having a family and all those things?
And none of those thoughts make you selfish. None of those thoughts make you less of a person. What we're seeing, and I did discuss it back in episode 84 about segregation and community, what we're seeing is such a divide because of labeling. So your family members, as I mentioned then, are no different to who they were last year. If you loved them last year, you can love them this year, no matter what the label. We need to look in terms of people. We need to look in terms of relationships. We need to look in terms of values and in terms of community, not in terms of labeling. Now, Vanessa, do you have anything that you'd like to speak to about segregation labeling?
Yes, I would say the segregation experience for me, I've actually let a lot of my family go because of the segregation experience. I am a support worker. I've been a support worker for many years, and I've really found that this area is my passion. I love people. I love helping people and seeing them grow with their challenges that they've gone through in this time. And for me, being put in a certain box because of my own choice of my body, that I'm not going to be vaccinated for my own health reasons, of not being able to work with certain clients, and my family not understanding, there's been a massive segregation. And for my own well-being and mental health, I've had to let a lot of them go.
And isn't that sad, listeners? Isn't it sad that people have to make decisions to let go of people that have been there all their lives just to stay healthy, mentally or physically? We're really seeing such a divide in humanity. And if there's anything I can educate you on today, it's that the label does not make the person. Because on both sides, we're making decisions at the moment on who we can be around, who we can't be around, and that's fine. Everyone to their own. But let's not forget the people that are there. So the families that may have cut some people off, or the families that other people have cut off for their own safety, their own mental health, let's not forget that they're still people. Just because you don't want to see someone doesn't mean you can't reach out to them. And you can't be a decent human being, especially if they're your family. Because when I spoke about community being health back in episode 84, I meant that. You might not see eye to eye with someone, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean you need to shut them out completely, even if it's just a text message now and then. Be courteous, be responsible, be thoughtful, but be caring, because they are still people going through their own journey. Don't let the labels split you up. Vanessa, is there anything else you'd like to discuss around labels in life?
Yeah, I'd say that this segregation and labels that I've gone through, when I reflect back, sort of like when you're watching a movie and you watch back at it, or you're watching a live show, that's the best way that I can describe it because I'm quite visual. You reflect back and think, how has this allowed me to grow? Have these experiences allowed me to make a decision now in this time and stand and feel proud and have that resilience and that confidence? And I have to say, from all those experiences that I've gone through, I'm grateful that it's made me a stronger person to know that things are not right, and I get to make my choices for my own body, and I can find community, and I have found beautiful tribe and community who have become more my family, and I'm happier. I have to say I'm a lot happier.
That's great. Listeners, please understand that a label does not define you, that a label is just words. Labels don't have feelings. They don't have emotions. They don't have a conscience. They're just words. So please stop going and labeling other people. Stop living your life by labels. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your label. You are a living, breathing, caring, important being. And that's what you need to remember. So listeners, coming up soon, we have some fantastic guests. You'll hear me ramble on about some listener questions that are being sent in on Facebook and to my email. But listeners, for now, you are not your label. Go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at A Magical Life Podcast or at Holistic Natural Health Australia. That's holistic with a W. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.